Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 10:02, so we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Catherine or Kat Thomas. I am the administrator for the Legislative Regulation Review Committee. I'm currently helping to cover Kirsten Briner. She's the actually the administrator for the Judiciary Committee, but she's currently on maternity leave. So until she's back, I'll be helping facilitate this this commission. I'm going to start by having everyone do introductions. But before I do that, I am going to do a quick quorum call, as this commission requires a quorum. So I'm going to read through the membership list. So if you're here, please unmute and just say present. And then from there, we'll do introductions. So we're going to start with Attorney Karen Buffkin.
Present.
Attorney Jay McClinsky. Attorney Moy Ogilvie.
Present.
Attorney Perry Rawthorne. Perry Rawthorne.
Present.
Oh, thank you. Attorney James Horwitz.
Present.
Dan Hitchell.
Present.
Attorney Herman Woodward Jr. Attorney Herbert Shepherdson.
Present.
Attorney Daniel Papermaster.
Present.
Dean Emity S. Nelson. Attorney Karen Noble.
Present.
All right, great. So we definitely have a quorum. I appreciate that. As far as introductions, I'll just go back to the list. Attorney Buffkin, would you like to start?
Certainly. Karen Buffkin. I have been practicing law for about 30 years, graduate of UConn Law School, and currently serving as the Executive Director of Employee and Labor Relations for both the University of Connecticut, UConn Health, and serving as their Labor and Employment Counsel.
Thank you. Attorney Ogilvie.
Hi, everyone. Moy Ogilvie. I've been practicing over 25 years. I'm a partner and the office managing partner at McCarter & English for the Hartford office. And that's it. I'm glad to be with this group. Thanks.
Thank you. Attorney Perry Rawthorne.
Good morning, everybody. Perry Rawthorne here, lawyer in private practice in West Hartford. Had a long career in the state AG's office. Good to see a lot of friends on this call. Thank you.
Thank you. And Attorney James Horwitz.
Good morning, all. I am now retired at the end of 23, but was the managing partner at Koskoff and Beater, and a medical malpractice lawyer there from 1986 until the end of 23.
Thank you. Dan Hitchell.
Hi, good morning. I'm Dan Hitchell. I'm the Vice President for Finance and Chief Financial Officer of Trinity College. I've been here at Trinity for 10 years.
Thank you. And I saw that Attorney Herman Woodward Jr. joined the meeting. Would you like to do a brief introduction?
Muted.
You're muted.
Attorney Woodward, you're muted.
How about now?
Perfect.
Okay. My name is Herman Wood. I'm here sitting in GA 14 now. I had a hearing this morning, but I had an opportunity to remove myself from there to at least join this meeting for a bit. I worked at a few places. I'm now in private practice on my own in Hartford.
Thank you. Attorney Shepherdson.
Welcome all. I'm a partner in the firm of Cooney, Scully and Dowling. I do mostly civil cases of all types, but the focus on medical malpractice cases at this point, but I get involved in a variety of different things.
Thank you. And Attorney Noble.
Hi, yes. I am a partner at the law firm of Gfeller Laurie here in West Hartford. I'm the co-chair of the Healthcare and Professional Liability Group here, and I practice primarily in medical malpractice defense work.
Great, thank you, everybody. So we're gonna now turn to the agenda, and we're going to we're going to open the floor to nominations for chair of this commission.
Sorry, Kay, I think you missed me. I don't know if you missed others as well in terms of just explanations. This is Dan Papermaster.
Oh, so I'm so sorry. Paper.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, hold on one moment, please. Apologies. Attorney Papermaster?
Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Dan Papermaster. I just retired actually on September 30th as a partner at Morgan, Lewis & Bockius. I was one of the heads of the finance practice there. Practiced for 35 years. I'm now senior counsel. I also served on the Federal Judiciary Review Board for over 10 years, evaluating federal judicial appointments here in Connecticut.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So we'll open the floor to nominations for chair. I don't know if someone's trying to speak, but they're muted. Please make sure if you do want to speak, you unmute on the bottom right there on your screen. Does anyone have a nomination?
I guess I'll chime in here. And I hope she'll forgive me, but I would nominate Karen Buffkin as being exceptionally qualified to serve as chair of this group.
I second the nomination.
Is there any discussion? All right, would everyone like to vote then? We can do a voice vote or a roll call vote. Does anyone have a preference?
Voice vote is probably fine.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of nominating Karen Buffkin as chair of the commission, say aye.
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 Opposed? Excellent. I'm going to turn the rest of the meeting over to Attorney Buffkin. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you very much. And Perry, we'll catch up. No, I seriously thank you very much for nominating me and selecting me to serve as chairperson of the commission. At this point, following our agenda, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Duke Chen, who is an associate analyst with the Office of Legislative Research for the General Assembly, to provide an overview of the statute which governs our work and the charge to the commission. Duke?
Yes, thank you. I have a PowerPoint presentation. Hopefully everybody can see that. So this is the Commission on Judicial Compensation. Just to give a brief history, prior to 2012, it was the Commission on Compensation of Elected State Officers and Judges that made recommendations to the legislature. But there hadn't been a judicial raise for 8 years prior to this. So the governor proposed a bill, Senate Bill 31 that year, because some of the reasons that he thought was that judges are not like other officials in the executive and legislative branches because they aren't elected. And so they thought that a judicial compensation would be a better way to make recommendations. This ultimately became PA 12-93, which is codified in General Statutes 51-47C, and it created a 12-member commission. It should also be noted that PA 22-85 generally made a lot of these elected officials salaries tied to judicial compensation. For example, the governor's salary now is tied to the Supreme Court Chief Justice, and other elected officials like the Lieutenant Governor and Secretary of the State is equal to a Superior Court judge salary now. So the 12 members are appointed 4 by the governor, 1 each by the 6 legislative leaders, and 2 by the Chief Justice. And the statute says, to the extent practicable, appointed members should have experience in financial management, human resource administration, or determining executive compensation. So by January 2nd, and then 4 years thereafter, which would be 2025, it requires the commission to examine the adequacy and need to adjust the compensation for certain judicial officials, which I'll go over in a second, for the following 4 fiscal years. The commission must also make recommendations for compensation and report its finding to the governor, the OPM secretary, legislature, chief justice, and chief court administrator. So the judicial officials that the commission must make recommendations for are the Supreme Court Chief Justice, the Associate Justices, the Appellate Court Chief Judge and Judges, Superior Court Judges, Chief Court Administrator if it's a judge or justice, the Deputy Chief Court Administrator if it's a judge, Appellate Judicial District and Chief Administrative Judges, Senior Judges and Judge Trial Referees, Chief Family Support Magistrates, Family Support Magistrates, and Family Support Referees. The law also requires. Yes?
Duke, can I interrupt you for a minute?
Sure.
Your PowerPoint is not moving. Is that intentional?
Sorry.
For
No,
us?
it's not.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry about that. All right. So the law requires the commission to consider all appropriate factors when making compensation requirements. There's 7 specific statutory factors, which include the state's overall economic climate, the inflation rate, compensation for federal or other state judges, compensation for attorneys employed by government agencies, academic institutions, and private and nonprofit organizations, the state's interest in attracting highly qualified and experienced attorneys to serve in judicial capacities, compensation adjustments for state employees during the same applicable fiscal years, and the state's ability to fund compensation increases. And that concludes the presentation, and I think we can put this online if that's helpful.
Thank you very much, Duke.
No.
And I think it makes sense to put it up on the judiciary website, so thank you. Moving to our next agenda item is consideration of invitations for presentations or for interested or public hearing for interested groups. I would note that Chief Justice Mullins and Chief Court Administrator Bizzuto would like to make a presentation to the commission. And from there, I would open it up for discussion. Just as a note, at the last commission, the work of the last commission 4 years ago, the following groups presented or made statements to this commission: CAPABA, the Connecticut Bar Association, CCDLA, the George Crawford Black Bar Association, the Office of Fiscal Analysis, and that appears to cover the sum total of the presentations that were made. So we can look at any of those that we would like to invite this time. And I open it up for discussion of any other appropriate entities that you think the commission should hear from.
Karen, Herb Shepherdson, I have a question. Is this, are they going to be, is it the thought that these groups would be invited? Is there also an opportunity would it be for public comment at large? I'm just curious if that happened last time.
There were both invited groups, and if I remember correctly from the reading through the work of the previous commission, I believe there was also a public hearing on the draft report.
And it's just and there's a notice and people show up and are given X amount of minutes to speak and say their comments if they choose to, something
Yes,
along those lines.
that's correct. And I think we can decide to do either or.
Karen, hi, Jim Horowitz. These groups were the groups that spoke, or these were the groups that were invited, the 5 that you just referenced?
I believe they were the invited.
And are these, obviously I recognize some of the groups. I don't recognize the first one that you mentioned.
I think that's CAPABA that was mentioned. That's
Yeah.
the Connecticut Asian Pacific Bar Association. It looks like probably all of the affinity bars and state and regional bars may have received an invitation, I'm assuming. It would make sense that all of them did if some of them actually appeared.
Right. Well, I guess that was my question, because for example, CTLA is not listed here, and I'm sure that there are other affinity bars that aren't listed here. So these were the ones who spoke rather than the ones who were invited. And it seems to make sense to invite the affinity bars. They come to speak, they speak, they don't, they don't.
Right. And can we get a list of all who were invited last time?
I will reach out. If it's not online, I will reach out to the committee to see if they have that in their records. Judicial.
I have the record right here.
Oh, you do? Thank you.
November 12th last year. It was OFA was first, and then the National Center for State Courts was next, and then the Judges Association, Judicial Selection Commission, and then the U.S. District Court of Connecticut had the chief judge who spoke, and then the Connecticut Bar Association, the Connecticut Asian Pacific Bar Association, the Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, and the Trial Lawyers Association, and then Civil Defense Lawyers Association.
So that's helpful. And I think also the broader question was, were there more who were invited but maybe chose not to speak or could not have spoken? So I think we know that those definitely got invited and chose to, but were there others who may have gotten the invitation, and should we send them, then extend the invitation again this time?
That I don't remember.
I think it makes sense to send it to all the affinity bar associations. If we're going to invite them to speak, that we extend the invitation to all.
Would we also be inviting written submissions for those who cannot speak or are not able to present orally?
Yes, we could do that.
And again, Jim Horowitz, I'm sorry. With that, I know we're talking about the affinity bar associations. I'm just not aware of whether the judiciary, any of the judges, have a sub associations, and whether we ought to, if there is such a thing, whether we ought to consider some kind of invitation to them, since they're the beneficiaries of all this.
Yes, there is listed on the November 12th, as Duke mentioned, the Judges Association. At the time, it was headed by Judge Leo Diana, who gave the presentation.
And that's the only judges association that there is. There's not a, whatever subgroup or other groups of judges who are associated in some way.
That I cannot speak to at this time, but we can certainly make sure that we check and see if there are other associations that should receive an invitation. Are there any other groups or associations or individuals beyond the list that Duke mentioned from the last round or last work of this commission? or the affinity bar associations and the Judges Association that we think should be included in this list to hear from. It does impact also, our work impacts the family support magistrates. So it's possible that maybe they have an association that we should consider inviting as well. If there are any other thoughts, certainly feel free to share them to the group by email, and to Duke, and we can, and Kat, and we can work from there if you have further thoughts on this. All right. Moving along, we need to talk about the scheduling of our next meeting. So the report is due to the General Assembly by January 2nd, taking into account the holiday season that starts typically with the Thanksgiving holiday. It makes sense to perhaps schedule something about 2 weeks from now, 10 days, 2 weeks from now.
I think that makes sense. And I'm also wondering, should we consider maybe just doing standing meetings so we at least save certain dates on our calendars, and then if we don't need them or you don't want to use them, we don't use them? Just
certainly. Does this time, Wednesday at 10 a.m. typically work for the members of the commission? So why don't we look?
If it's possible to either start at 9, I'm starting a trial. And so if we start before court or after would be preferred.
Is 9 o'clock problematic for members? All right, so let's look at 9 o'clock on Wednesday mornings with a cadence of every 2 weeks. And if that isn't working, then we can certainly adjust that schedule as the work.
Thanks, everyone.
Can someone from the staff send out an invites for all those, just so we put them in our calendar?
Certainly. I assume that they will all be virtual, so we will ask that Zoom meetings be scheduled for that time.
Thank you.
May I have, if there's no other business or anything else that the commission would like to talk with regard to the schedules, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Actually, I have a question.
Oh, certainly.
I read the last report and it talked about compensation in a narrow fashion in terms of pay, but did not address benefits. And just by way of example, I was having a conversation with a bunch of lawyers the other day, and they asked me what I was doing post-retirement, and I mentioned that I was going to be on this commission, and they all brought up the fact of judicial benefits, particularly pension benefits and health benefits after a limited period of time serving on the bench. So it would seem to me that, and obviously people take those things into consideration when they're setting their own compensation, figuring out whether they're going to do something. So it would seem like that only looking at actual pay is maybe a little too narrow.
We can certainly, have a discussion about that. Duke, if there's anything in particular that you learned during the legislative history that would shed some light on that, it would be great if we could hear as we move forward with those discussions. Typically, those benefits are statutory, unlike most of the state employees where they're bargained. So, but that's a good thought.
I do have one quick scheduling question. I just looked through the calendar, and the way that you asked me to set it up would have the last meeting on Jan 1, which we can't really do because that's like a state holiday and everything. So, and I'm sure no one else would want to anyway. But do you want me to do that one on like the 30th, which is the Monday?
Why don't we schedule and plan on completing our work before the December holidays?
Okay.
So scheduled through mid-December.
Okay, perfect.
For now.
Thank you
And
so
if
much.
we need an additional date, we can add to that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have an objection to that?
No objection.
All right. If there's no other business before the commission, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Right.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day. Take care.
Take care.